Hey guys, Ben from BensGameTime here, and I think that most of us can agree that Borderlands is a really good game. From the fun gameplay, the great RPG mechanics, and comical characters, to the cooperative gameplay and the excellent balance between the single and multiplayer difficulties, there's honestly not a lot to talk about that hasn't already been said. But as good as this game is, one aspect that isn't so good and isn't widely talked about is its DLC.
Borderlands, in my opinion, doesn't have all that many flaws, but the biggest one has to be the DLC. There are 4 DLCs in total, and they range from okay to terrible. First is the Zombie Island of Dr. Ned. This is a Halloween-themed DLC, but it's pretty much just a generic zombies DLC from when everyone was doing something zombies related. Here, you fight against zombies, and sometimes werewolves, which were created by Dr. Ned.
Who isn't Dr. Zed from the main game?
And it is your job to stop him and his creations. This DLC is fairly short and doesn't offer much in the way of entertainment or challenge. The zombie enemies aren't difficult to deal with, and the story is pretty shallow. The biggest problem with this DLC is just how bland it is. Nothing really kept me interested or entertained while I was playing it. Also, for some weird reason, a quest item that you get from headshotting zombies will spawn even before you start the quest and after you finish it, so there's that. Honestly, I would just say play it once to see what it's about, but I wouldn't recommend playing it more than that. Next is Mad Moxxi's Underdome Riot, and this is by far the worst DLC in the bunch. All it is a round-based survival game mode.
Because I've never seen that one before, and you remember how I said that the game has a great balance between its single and co-op difficulties? Well, that flies out the window here.
How this works is that you fight against waves of enemies. There are 5 waves per round, with every 5th wave being a boss from the main story. As you get further in the rounds, random bonuses are added to mix things up. These bonuses can help you, such as increased damage to particular weapons, but most are hindrances, like having no shield or constantly losing health until you kill an enemy. I have no problem with this concept, and I feel like this could have worked if it was executed well. The problems start with how the enemies are balanced. The levels of the enemies are balanced according to the host player, which makes sense. However, this makes it challenging for solo players, and in my playthrough of the main game, I was usually a few levels higher than the enemies from completing all the side quests, yet the enemies still put up a good fight even then.
But here's the kicker. If you die, you don't restart from the wave you're on. You don't even start from the round you're on. You start from the beginning of the previous round. So say for example you're on wave 4 of round 5. If you were to die, you go back to the beginning of round 4. What kind of sadistic punishment is that? And remember, enemies are designed to get you into last stand if you're evenly matched. So for a solo player, you're bound to die, meaning that completing this on solo is nearly impossible. But it gets worse. The starting challenges last for 5 rounds, i.e. 25 waves of enemies. But the later challenges last for 20 rounds, 100 waves of enemies. How the hell is anyone supposed to beat this on solo? It is as close to as impossible as you can get. And this DLC is one of the most poorly designed things in the history of video games that I have ever seen. The one good thing about this DLC is that it has a bank to store weapons and equipment at. But I'd skip this one altogether.
After that train wreck, there's the Secret Armory of General Knox. The big theme for this DLC is cars, which is good to see that the vehicle gameplay is getting more love. Atlas, the military corporation from the main story, is trying to hunt you down due to your involvement with the Vault, and you gotta fight back against them. This one's a little longer than the first DLC, but again, I'll just say play it once. It is a more challenging DLC in the way of combat, but it highlights the biggest issue found across all the DLCs. There is no fast travel between locations within a DLC area. This is especially bad here, since to get between the 2 halves of the map, you have to travel on a long highway, and oftentimes the main quest line has you go from one end of the map to the other, which isn't fun. The best part of this DLC is the armory itself. After killing Nox, you gain access to the armory for a limited time, where you can make a mad dash to get as many weapons as possible. You also get a few more additional runs through it after completing side quests. This DLC also features a super boss, Cromorax. This guy is tough, and it is definitely better to face this guy in a co-op game. His base level is 61, and he will always be a few levels higher than yours. The only way to damage him is to shoot his purple spots, one on each claw, one on his face, and one on his back. He also has some smaller minions running around that are also pretty strong. If you're playing on solo and having trouble, then there is a glitch where you can hug this corner and sometimes he won't attack you. Just shoot his spots and use a rocket launcher for the one on his back. Health and ammo regeneration perks are a must, but if you're able to beat him, he drops a plethora of high-powered weapons and equipment. Overall, this DLC is better than the other two, but it still has its own problems. The last DLC is Claptrap's new Robot Revolution, and this is by far the best DLC in the bunch. In this DLC, Claptrap has gone rogue and is starting a revolution for all robot kind, and you have to prevent it. The map for this DLC is the smallest, except for Mad Moxie, but those were just arenas, and the lack of fast travel isn't much of a problem here. The story of this DLC seems more like a continuation of the main story than a side story like the others, and this is the most fun to play. The enemies are roboticized versions of regular enemies, some bosses make a return as cyborgs, and you even get to fight against the Claptrap army itself. There is plenty of good humor in this DLC, and there are more references than I can mention. For the most part, this is a solid DLC, but it still has two small problems. The first is a series of quests you get that require you to kill large amounts of Claptrap enemies. After killing them, they will drop a part which you will have to collect hundreds of, but only a limited number will spawn in each area. The only good place to grind for this is in the final boss arena. Just disable its weapons and farm the Claptraps that spawn from it. The Claptrap enemies also have a chance of dropping an additional collectible item, and this is where the other problem arises. A good few of the achievements in this DLC revolve around collecting these random drops. The items just dropping alone can be rare, but then to get a specific one can be a lot harder. I know these achievements are just an optional bonus that most will ignore, but for someone like me that goes for achievements, this was extremely annoying. The one thing that helped to alleviate some of this process is that it seemed like items related to achievements I already got spawned less after earning them, while items that had never appeared previously showed up more. I can't confirm if this is true or not, but that's what it felt like to me. Besides these collectibles, this was the best DLC in the bunch, and I would recommend playing it more than just once. And that's the Borderlands DLC for you. Some of it was okay, some of it was really bad, but some of it was also good and fun to play. For the most part, I would say just stick to the main game, but if you want to try something different, then the DLC is worth a shot. That's all for this video. Let me know what you thought of the Borderlands DLC, this video, or whatever else in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video.